we'll go through today anyway, see what happens. Okay, I have some things that I could present as cases and so. Okay, if there aren't any students, maybe we need to reconsider offering to see if the students want to read something coming. But we'll go through today anyway, see what happens. Okay, I have some things that I could present as cases and so forth to illustrate. If you have questions about anything we've talked about or any aspect of psychotherapy, if you want clear, we'll deal with that first, try to answer all your questions if we can. Feel more sophisticated about what you're doing and what this growth process is all about. Growth is a very grand thing, a very joyful thing. You feel such a tremendously liberated from the fears, the anxiety, the constriction of the whole personality. So I'd like to give you a feel for that growth process, because when I talk about growth, I'm not really just talking about some kind of change in the way one behaves or even the way one lives, but I'm talking about a state of maturational enhancement for what is functioning at a maturational level more mature than one has ever functioned before. And that's really ultimately what the process of psychotherapy is about, because our basic function in life is to mature psychologically, not just to act differently and still retain the same level of immature psychological fixation and functioning. So it's important that I try to illustrate for you what the elements are, the basic elements of that fixation process and that maturational enhancement, so that what we experience and what we're capable of doing, feeling, is so much greater and newer as a function of our new level of psychological functioning.
In past weeks you've described, for example, an alcoholic who is alcoholic and drinking, and you say your instruction to the person is to say, well, just don't take a drink for once and see what happens. Isn't that very similar on some level to what a behavioral psychologist would say, which is, if you want to stop drinking, you have to start by not drinking?
Yes, they may condition you to refrain from drinking, but what they then do is usually encourage you to transfer that compensatory need perhaps to some other object. So if you ever go to an AA meeting, you see they smoke like crazy, and they have coffee in one hand and cigarette in another hand, and they're indulging the same process of escape from the pain, whereas what we're talking about is getting to the source of the stress, the threat of the pain, so that one doesn't not only use the alcohol, then surely doesn't use anything across the board as compensatory escape from those feelings, you see. So in eliminating the alcohol, you see, we're not sure that if a person then takes up with some other drug or takes up even with cigarettes or with overeating, are they really better off than the alcohol? And we don't know what kills you faster, what disables you more. So we don't want to stop only at that symptomatic alleviation. And as I say, I have a question as to whether even the symptomatic alleviation would be effective, because when people have been alcoholic for a long time especially, they have a sense of control and a sense of security that goes with that control only in the reliance upon the alcohol. They don't trust anything else. They don't trust people to relieve their anxiety. People have a means of enhancing their anxiety, pain, and stress. So if you keep them off the stress, they may be able to function away from the use of the alcohol, sometimes using the AA meetings as a new form of dependency upon a sense of high, a sense of worth, a sense of security that the alcohol is providing. Now the group provides a sense of security, a sense of belonging. But they haven't dealt with their feelings of insecurity. They haven't outgrown those. They haven't matured beyond those. And therefore, removing a symptom we're never sure is the proper thing to do, because that might be the very best symptom that they have. Because we find that in many cases of symptom substitution, that when you remove a symptom, clients often get involved in a more serious symptom, a worse symptom, a more pathological symptom. Or they go back to the same use. Going back to the same use, they feel even worse because they feel like a failure. They become convinced they really can't stay away from the alcohol. It cripples their confidence and destroys any possible therapy with them in any other way. So we're not interested in the alleviation of the alcohol per se, but in the stress upon the individual that leads him to use alcohol in particular as a way of dealing with that stress. If there's no stress, there won't be any need for the overeating or the alcohol or the compulsive cigarette smoking or coffee drinking or compulsive sexuality or whatever individuals tend to use to create an artificial euphoria, artificial high, to escape the terrible threat that the ego is feeling itself to be under. If you don't alleviate the threat to the ego, you're not going to eliminate the urge to get high, take the alcohol as a way of feeling some control over the expanding threat of that ego dissolution. So it isn't just that they want to hide their awareness of how threatened their ego is. They want to gain some sense of control over the outbreak of all that anxiety, all that pain, all that threat that tends to annihilate or overwhelm the ego. The ego can't deal with all of that as it keeps expanding. So the alcohol becomes a sense of control over its expansion, offering a state of relative security. If you look carefully in your own life, I think you will find some element of addiction. See, we don't want to only talk about addicted personalities, narcissistic personalities. However subtle they may be, whether it's addiction to television or talking on the telephone or relating to certain kind of friends that make you feel better when you are in stress, or biting your nails, or whatever it may be. You'll find that somewhere along the way that you have a particular pet use for anxiety reduction, meaning a sense of control over the expansion of that anxiety or threat to your ego, or the amount of pain you're experiencing. And in that sense, we want to help you do better too. We want to help you to understand that the escape only intensifies the urge. It only weakens your ego, because every time you escape, you are convincing yourself how weak you are and unable to endure the threat or the stress or the pain. And every time you reinforce that notion that you are too weak to deal with it, you weaken your ego strength and therefore become more susceptible to being overwhelmed by even a lower level of stress and pain, because you have weakened the ego so much as a function of all that escape. So,
it seems though, looking at it another way, that if someone, to use your example, likes to talk on the telephone as a way of relieving their anxiety, that if they kept on doing that, they might at some point realize that this isn't working.
Isn't working for what, though?
To dispel my anxiety.
Well, it does tend to work to some degree. I mean, even the cigarette, in the first few moments, tends to dispel the fear that you have no control over the anxiety, because later on the addiction will get even greater.
Yeah.
But for example, if I have one of the ego needs we talked about, a need for recognition because I feel like I'm fading into the woodwork, but I'm nothing. I get on the phone and somebody says, "Oh yes, Lucille, good to hear from you again," whatever. Good to hear a stranger's voice. I'm acknowledged. I get recognition. So for the moment, I feel a recognition that assuages my anxiety, that psychologically I'm a nothing and a nobody, because when I look inside, I don't see anything. I'm just a reflection of my parents, or I just feel the emptiness that I really am psychologically, which most of us feel as egos, because the ego is empty. There's no life substance, there's nothing substantial to feel. It's made up of ideas and concepts and images. So if I get on the phone and I talk for a while, and people ask me about myself, and they affirm some things in me that I feel I identify with, and I feel, well, somebody recognizes something in me that's real, substantial, continuing, consistent, whatever. Therefore, I'm not the big fat nothing that I thought I was, psychologically speaking. But as soon as they get off the phone, well, the anxiety continues again, because I don't see anything in there. I mean, all you're seeing in me is my condition, the persona that I throw out at you to impress you that I'm intelligent and sensitive and caring and athletic and this and that, whatever I throw out at you. And you throw that back at me. But I really don't see it. If I saw it, I wouldn't need to compulsively get on the phone. So as soon as they get off the phone, the anxiety is even greater.
But if I can just interrupt, it seems like at some point while you're on the phone, it might occur to you that this isn't working. I mean, it might have worked just for, I might have gotten that momentary thing, but here's this person and they're boring me in the way that they usually bore me, or boring me or something. I mean, it's
Yes.
just, it's not working.
If we could be aware that it's not working, we are already more than halfway into a maturational growth. Because in most cases we build an insensitivity to our fear and pain, because if we are sensitive to it, it may overwhelm us. So over the years we build an insensitivity, we condition an insensitivity so that we're not aware of what we're feeling. So that we are constantly lost in the conversation, and I'm trying to pull out from this person, don't you see how I've changed over the last few weeks? I'm going to a new therapist, and I'm changing wonderfully, and I've been talking about this and that, and the person comes back and says, oh, it sounds like you're growing quite a bit. Wonderful. That's what I want to hear and have confirmed. But you see, part of the client's problem is the fact that they have conditioned an insensitivity to the experiential truth of themselves in order to be able to have some control over the escape of the awareness of that pain which threatens to annihilate the ego. So in that conditioned insensitivity, I'm not aware that I am bored. I am not aware that this is not helping me escape from my problem. Once I'm aware that my life is not helping me escape from my problem, I'm already partly there. Either because my controls are not, my defenses are not adequate anymore to bind the anxiety, or because at some level I recognize that the anxiety is there, very intense, no matter what I do. But to acknowledge that means I've undone my conditioned insensitivity to myself. To do that, I have to be somewhat convinced that I have some ego strength. Otherwise, I'm afraid that what's there is going to annihilate me, overwhelm me, inundate me. That's how the ego feels. That's why it feels so threatened. It feels no powerful control to alleviate, to diminish the threat that's coming up from one's threatening feelings. Emptiness, nothingness, worthlessness, inadequacy, insecurity, abandonment, whatever is there. So yes, if I could be aware, that would be wonderful. It would mean that at some level I'm anxious to grow. Why? Because I've already increased my sensitivity. I've undone some of the conditioned insensitivity to my own experiential life. But most of you in your therapy work recognize that even when you hear a very obvious feeling, clients will deny feeling anything. They will find it very hard to get to any feeling, much less the most basic threat to the ego. Because they haven't even seen their depression or their anger, or whatever else. The essential part of therapy is to undo that conditioned insensitivity. Because when you undo that, then the client can see for himself or herself what they're feeling and have unification with it. And then they're more spontaneous. If I know what I'm feeling, I know what to say to you in my relationships to you. Because I know it's real for me. And I can feel where you're coming from because I have this, I don't have this condition of sensitivity. I'm very sensitive to what I feel and what you feel. Therefore, I can read my environment better. Therefore, I feel more secure. Because I can't get conned by you with a smile and a nice handshake and a this and a that. I can feel at the gut level, I can feel your hostility or resentment or competitiveness or whatever. So it isn't so much what it is we find out about the client down in here. We want to undo that condition and sensitivity so that there is a closeness between what you're feeling and what you're aware of in terms of your gut level. When there's no gap between what you're feeling and what you're aware of, then you're a very real, spontaneous individual. Who can be very real and spontaneous with others and very sensitive to what others are feeling. Because as soon as it comes into you, it comes right up to conscious awareness. But as it exists now, our feelings are down here, and we have this conditioned insensitivity that always moves us away from our feelings. We're always looking away with all kinds of extraneous thinking up here, interests, involvements, addictive sensations, alcohol, cigarettes.
Dr. Hammond, would you just sort of like give an example when you talk about your awareness and your feelings being close together and then bringing that better level?
Sure. For example, if we're having a conversation and I'm fearful of being rejected by you, if I have a condition in sensitivity, I'm not aware of that. What I do then is I constrict. I become quiet. I become boring to you. You see only my constriction because I'm not aware that I'm fearful of the rejection. If I become open, if there's no condition in sensitivity, then I will not just constrict and leave the relationship or become super quiet, hoping that you will carry the brunt of the conversation. I will recognize that I am fearful of your rejection, and I will be aware of that and then talk to you about what it takes for me to feel secure in a relationship, why I feel the rejection by you, because I'm sensitively aware of what you're doing that's contributing to my feelings of rejection. So knowing what that is, being aware of that, I can then communicate to you what I feel you're doing that's making you feel rejected, abandoned.
Isn't that something that one needs to own oneself rather than say, well, what you're doing is making me feel rejected?
Yes, but it's okay, simply because I feel there's some relationship between what you're doing and my feeling of rejection. The first issue is I may be projecting everything. What I'm feeling may not be real, but I'm not ready to see that yet. In other words, you may be signaling rejection of me. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying I clearly feel that's what you're doing. That's the reality. Can we talk about that? Then you can say to me, well, yeah, you've been so distant and so constricted and whatever, and but I feel no relationship to you, no closeness to you. Yes, I am getting ready to dump you. That's true. I can feel it. You see. Why? Because I can feel the lack of energy invested in me. I can feel your cathexis is not invested in me as I did earlier in our relationship when I could feel that cathexis of energy directed toward me. You were psychologically present to me. You were listening to me. Now when I talk to you, your eyes move and your mind is wandering and you're not psychologically present to me. And I can feel that. But if I need to have a reassurance about my security, see, I'll condition that insensitivity. I won't even be aware of what you're thinking and feeling. I'm telling myself I'm secure. I'm telling myself you still care about me. And I will say certain things to you and force certain reactions out of you that will confirm the fact that I'm still secure. In actuality, I'm very insecure. Even my behavior toward you is pushing you away because it's so insensitive and so controlling and so unreal. Because I force from you a smile, I force from you something that reassures me that all is well. But I don't feel all is well. I don't feel anything. That's the problem. So once I don't have this condition and sensitivity so that I can feel, I can sense right away when something has changed in our relationship. Right away I can sense the difference in energy flow from me. I can say, you're not talking to me about it, but I can feel something's wrong in our relationship, in your feelings toward me. I can feel it. It's an experiential reality to me. You are just not as present to me as you were. That's what it means to be sensitive, aware. Being able to read people, I don't get calm. It doesn't matter how they smile or what they say. Vibrationally speaking, every emotion has energy attached to it, and I can feel your anger. I can feel your distance. I can feel whatever. Because we are not absolutely separated psychologically. That's why empathy is possible. Love relationship is possible. Because even physically on the circumference, we seem separated as points on the circumference. Psychologically, we're not separated. That's why I'm able to understand you, empathize with you, feel what you're feeling, stand in your psychological shoes. Not just imagine myself in your shoes, but feel. That's the state of communion that, if I have enough time, I'll discuss with you in terms of what an optimal therapeutic relationship involves. You're being really immersed in the client's psychological shoes, and therefore you can feel what they're feeling even better than they can feel what they're feeling. You can feel what's going on at their gut level when they're up here and cannot, because you're responding directly to this gut level. and not just to the words coming out of their mouth. So that therapeutic relationship has to be understood, has to be discussed, because you grow as a therapist as your capacity to really engage in that kind of relationship, where you're so immersed in the client's experiential truth from moment to moment, and not in your own self-consciousness, that you're able to hear every subtle nuance of every change, a flow of that feeling. As they move from anxiety, you see, and they're frightened about something and they change the subject, or they change at least the feeling, you get a heavy sigh, and they're still talking, but the affect is now gone, and you can feel it. Nobody can teach you that. That's beyond the scientific element of psychotherapy. That requires you to be tremendously open to receive data from the client that does not necessarily come through the head and the senses. It comes directly at the gut level, from gut to gut, because there is no psychological separatedness, fortunately. Because if there were, if we were truly separated, we could never be in a state of communion, and real love relationship would never be possible. Two as one. It would never be true empathy, true understanding. I would kind of just assume I think I know what you mean, but I couldn't be in that experiential state that tells me, yes, I see what you're feeling and I understand where you're coming from. We would be always separated. Fortunately, psychologically, we are not separated individuals. We only create an ego that gives us a sense of separatedness through our own self-consciousness. So if I'm conscious of me, I feel separated from you. But you will see that that's part of the conditioned insensitivity that we build in order to feel psychologically distant and separated from others, so we can retain the ego's feeling of psychological individuation. So in our therapeutic relationship, we are so forgetful of self, because we're not reacting anymore, that we're totally moving and flowing with the client's moment-to-moment experiential truth. We know what they feel, we know why they feel it, and when they move away from it, we say, well, I have a feeling that you were angry about something, but that's not how you moved away from it. I wonder if you can get back to that. Feel that again, see where you were at, see why you moved away from it. Or I might even hear why they moved away from it, which I may share with them or may not, depending upon your own ability to deal with that. So our basic problem and your basic problem is you're not a therapist until you undo your own condition and sensitivity. You are still a client by definition. If you are divorced head to heart, if you are divorced from yourself, you are still fundamentally a client and not a therapist. You have to be able to be something and do something the client cannot be and do. It's not a matter of taking courses in psychotherapy technique, but the client can do that too. And still not be a therapist and still not resolve their problems. Your own personal growth undoes that condition and sensitivity because you're not so afraid of the pain and the threat of dissolution of the ego, of the positive self-concepts that these feelings represent. Therefore, you're open to your gut level, you're open to what you feel, and all the immature feelings that you, and reactions that you have fixated down here flow up and they speak and they drain out, and you're outgrowing all of that immature fixation. All of the reactions you had in childhood that you rejected, and to keep you still functioning and feeling like an immature child. So your distance from here to here is your own pathology, is your own immaturity, is your own fixation, is your own clientness, is the absence of your own therapiness. When this moves up to here, and you're very sensitive and aware, you'll be very sensitive also to what's going on in the gut level of the client, and then you are a therapist, with or without courses in psychotherapy. Because you are very familiar with what the other person is feeling and rejecting, and you can have them stop rejecting it and unify with it, which is a healing effect in psychotherapy, and a growth effect because they outgrow the fixation that has dominated their consciousness for so long. They are no longer fixed upon feeling insecure like a child, fearful of abandonment like a child that makes me cling to you and control you, worthless like a child, impotent of will, weak and helpless, vulnerable like a child, and all the things we have been feeling, even as adults, but still feeling like a child in ourselves, and rationalizing it, justifying it. It must be the psych department that's producing all this stuff, or whatever justification we use, and sometimes it is true. So this is our issue, and this is the client's issue. It isn't so much that we want to help the client retrieve this particular rejected feeling. We want to help the client undo the insensitivity, because even if we help him retrieve this particular feeling, this conditioned insensitivity will make him continue to repress and reject other feelings, and the pathology process continues. We want to teach him how to be his own therapist. We want to undo the pathology process so that if he's close to himself, no matter what he's feeling, he's aware of it, and he doesn't need to come to therapy anymore for patchwork. Otherwise, the next time he rejects another feeling, he comes to therapy again, now for a different feeling that he's rejected, whatever it may now be. And still insensitive, and still unaware. I feel something, but I don't know what I feel. It's bothering me. What means bothering me? I don't know. It's uncomfortable. Not sleeping as well. Something is bothering me, but I don't know what it is. That is the problem. Many of you also have feelings that are bothering you. You don't know what it is. That is your clientness. Once you have feelings and you know immediately what the feeling is, that is your therapiness, therapistness.
When you say it's not, you couldn't really call it a feeling then at that point. It's just your experiential reality. You're not feeling it, you're just experiencing it.
That's right, but it's the same thing because it is a feeling, because it has energy in it. It has words plus energy in it, and it's flowing from the gut level. It's flowing up to conscious awareness in a steady stream. And so, yes, you're aware of it, and it's speaking, and it's draining out, and you're not retaining anything. But in every moment that you're with somebody, those feelings are coming, whatever they may be, but you're aware of them. And therefore, your ability to relate, you are aware of the reality every moment of yourself and of the other individual. So you see, your ability to relate to yourself is very much related to your ability to relate to others. If there's an insensitivity to yourself, you're insensitive to the experiential reality of others also. You can't be any more intimate with your partner than you can be intimate with yourself. Well, obviously, because if your partner tells something that triggered what was rejected in yourself, you would reject that in yourself, so you reject that in your partner. If they have hostility that you can't deal with, you're not going to encourage them talking to you about their hostility. If they talk to you about their hostility, in your empathy with the client, you will feel your own hostility, and they'll start living daylights out of you. So you can't relate to others if you don't relate to yourself. The conditioned insensitivity to yourself will operate as a conditioned insensitivity. And you can't teach a person to relate. You can't give them the skills of social relationship because it's not under ego willful control, which is all that you can teach them. Because the ability to hear and feel is at a deeper level than the conscious willful control. So I can't teach you the skills of how to listen and hear people. If anybody could, you'd have a course in that. Nobody can teach that to you. I can teach you what's involved and help you to understand what you do to obstruct that process, and I can talk to you about the essence of the state of communion and therapeutic relationship and why you're a good therapist only when you are capable of that kind of relationship, because then nothing the client feels or is motivated to do escapes your conscious awareness. You're just too sensitive and you pick up everything they feel. That may sound grandiose to you now because of the conditioned sensitivity, but once you start flowing and feel everything that you're feeling quickly and spontaneously, you will see how that also changes in your relationship to others. So the ability to relate to clients is a mature capacity for love relationship. Because if you can't hear your partner in therapy or outside of therapy, you can't be intimate. If you can't hear what their experiential reality is, you can't relate to that reality, there's no contact between the two of you. There's no closeness between the two of you, and the relationship will not be enduringly satisfying because you don't feel your partner is contacting you in terms of what you're feeling, and you are not contacting your partner in terms of what he or she is feeling. Therefore, there's no closeness. Therefore, the relationship begins to grow in distance. If you become psychologically divorced, then it's only a matter of time before you become legally divorced. Psychological divorce comes first. Being psychologically divorced from yourself, it's only a matter of a very short time before you'll be divorced from your partner. Well, if you are this way as a therapist, You see that all you have to work with is the verbal intercourse, the intellectual intercourse that takes place between the two of you at the head level, because the client feeling this stuff is not going to share it with you, and if they did, you wouldn't hear it. You would still hear only the verbal part of the experiential truth. See, there is a connection between the feeling and the words related to the feeling. And if you don't know how to feel that, you're hearing only the word part, but you're not feeling the feeling part. So if I talk to you about certain things, the words that I use, you can feel my anger, you can feel my insecurity, you can feel my affection for you, you can feel whatever. Once you feel my affection for you, then you don't have to be told over and over, I love you, or give you flowers and candy on your birthday. You do all the demonstrations of caring because you don't feel the caring. If you could feel my caring, then you don't need all these superficial demonstrations. It's when you don't feel my caring that you need some kind of proof or demonstration in some other way. That I'm thoughtful about you, I write you little poems and send you flowers and candy on your birthday, or whatever, and you would say, oh, how thoughtful. You must therefore really care about me. It's a conclusion, but it's not an experiential reality. So I'm trying to say to you that if I had more time involved in your training, the emphasis of the training would be to get you to undo this. I could teach you how to do that. And then you're very real, very spontaneous, very creative, very close to yourself, and therefore you will have no difficulty hearing the client's subtle nuances of feeling, escape, rejection. And because you haven't run away from your feelings, you have a right to question the client and ask, I wonder why that feeling is so unacceptable to you that you have to run away from it. Whatever it may be, because you haven't. As long as you run away from your own experiential life, it becomes ethically difficult for you to ask the client to face something that you yourself can't face. Or as far as you're concerned, it's not even faceable. How would you ask a client to do something that you are convinced can't be done? Otherwise you would have done it yourself. No? It's a very difficult ethical issue. How do we have a right to ask our clients to do something that we haven't done, or we actually believe can't be done? Because if we could do it, we would be working on it and doing it. So let's understand basically therapy is not a technique. You're going to have to grow as a person. You're going to have to grow in your acceptance and love of yourself, and integration of yourself, unification with yourself, intimacy with yourself. And in doing that, you are doing what the client cannot do, therefore you deserve to be called a therapist, because you can do what the client cannot do. You can accept feelings. You can grow. You can be real. You can be spontaneous. All the things the client cannot do because of their condition and sensitivity. Now, there's no fault involved. We have all conditioned in insensitivity, because when we're young, the ego is weak, and it would have been overwhelmed had we not conditioned that insensitivity. Certain feelings would have overwhelmed us. The recognition that mommy really doesn't love us, and that given half a chance, she probably would dump us. That's too painful a thing to feel yourself feel. But then you're feeling insecure all the time. So you tell yourself, mommy does love me, and I just make myself insensitive to what I'm feeling. Or my own hostility toward my parents. If I let myself become close to my feelings and I felt my hostility, it might come out. If it comes out, then I'm really going to be in trouble with my parents, because they won't tolerate it. They'll stop valuing me, stop loving me, maybe even stop keeping me. So I have to make sure I don't feel my hostility. I don't feel my insecurity. I don't feel my worthlessness, even though at some level I feel it, because I see they don't value me, or they compare me with my brother in a very negative way. It's too difficult for children to feel those things, too overwhelming to the very fragile ego that is beginning to develop. So of course we build a conditioned insensitivity to the truth, the experiential truth of ourselves. That is the basic therapeutic endeavor. Because once I get the client to undo that separatedness, he doesn't need me anymore. Now whatever he's feeling, he himself can tune into very quickly. Now he's his own therapist. I've given him more than just a little bit of insight of some repressed feelings. I've taught him how to be his own healing agent, how to be his own therapist, how to be close to himself, how not to value judge feelings, conceptualize them, all the things that one does, react to them, that makes one continue to condition the insensitivity. Feeling is reaction, then we react to the reaction, and we're living up in here with the reaction and conscious of that and therefore insensitive to what we're feeling. Show you that once you stop reacting to feeling, so that the surface of the consciousness is quiet, then it becomes sensitive and capable of hearing this reaction at the gut level. The reaction the child's still reacting with. I'm worthless. The world rejects me and hates me. I'm unlovable. Whatever the reaction that is still going on and still being spoken by the child part of our functioning. So in so many forms of therapy, the function actually is to maintain this condition in sensitivity by working only with my available conscious cognitions or behaviors. It's designed to keep me even more insensitive to what I am. It doesn't alleviate the divorce. It pretends I don't have a gut level, that I have no heart, that I have no feeling center with feelings in them. Much less what is beyond even those in terms of our real individuality, what is beyond even that. That can't be therapy because it doesn't produce a healing, a coming together of what has been rejected. Therefore, it doesn't undo the fixations of what has been rejected. It doesn't undo the immaturity. So I may act a little differently. A young man came to see me the other day. He wants to explore the growth process because he said, I recently have grown and I'm very excited about that. I said, okay, tell me what you've grown with. I can hear that. He tells me that he used to be, everybody told him that also, he was terribly aggressive, very willful and combative, and nobody could stand this guy. Super aggressive guy. So he said, I thought about that, I agreed with those people, and I have minimized my aggressiveness. I'm so proud of myself for growing. I said, well, we hear a change, you're behaving differently, but we're not sure we hear growth. And as we discussed it, I tried to help him to see what the feeling was that made him act so aggressively. He's very resentful of feeling weak and helpless and controlled by others and impotent and vulnerable. And as soon as that feeling comes, he becomes super aggressive. So I helped him to see that he has, at some level, he is still feeling weak and helpless and vulnerable. And therefore responding with super aggressiveness, only not letting himself behave as aggressively as he has before. He now has some conscious control over how much aggressiveness he expresses, although he's not aware of how much is really coming through, because he's still super aggressive, but he's not really aware. To him, he has reduced it immeasurably. But what hasn't changed is the despicableness of the feelings of weakness and helplessness. And so when I raise these to him, I say, are you ready to accept feelings of weakness and helplessness and vulnerability? No way. I'll die first before I'll face those feelings. That's what growth is. You see. When you no longer feel those feelings, when you've outgrown those feelings, you don't need to compensate with aggressiveness and control, then there is growth. Now he's not so sure he wants to get into the growth process. He thought it was a little easy, but you just find out what you need to change in yourself and you modify your behavior, but it is just a modified continuity of the same level of functioning that's always been there for him. He is still that frightened, immature, very weak-feeling child that is acting in a compensatory opposite manner about how strong and controlling, and nobody's going to tell him what to do.
So the aggression is just a symptom, so it's
Sure.
a symptom of ego feelings of weakness, vulnerability.
Right. Not only symptom, but a compensatory defense. It compensates by giving you the opposite sensation of what you're experientially feeling. That's the design of it, to teach you that you are actually the opposite of what you detest. So you don't feel weak, you feel strong. You don't feel vulnerable, you feel in control. It gives them all those sensations.
So how do you approach a client who comes in and who is obnoxious and loud and doesn't listen and aggressive or just a generally despicable sort of character, but you hear that the person is terribly lonely, okay, underneath all this display. And so what do you say? I can hear you're terribly lonely. The person's going to say, bullshit, I'm not lonely. I can command my world however I want to.
Okay, let's see if that's true. You want to role play it? I could be obnoxious. I'm good at that. Or whatever else you want. And then we'll see what you do. How you relate to me. Of course, obnoxious is a value judgment. I'm doing something very particular. What am I doing that's so obnoxious? Super aggressive?
Yeah, or just putting, you could be putting me off in a certain way.
What am I doing specifically that's obnoxious to you?
Calling me Doc and, talking about the weather. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like not being present in therapy and pretending that you are being present in therapy.
Okay, so let's say I do that. How you doing today, Doc? You look down in the dumps, Doc. I'll bet you don't even want to be here today. You don't look well, a little pale. Not getting enough sun, I see. It's really sad they put you in these tiny rooms, closets. I don't know why you stand for that. What am I doing?
Trying to put her off guard. Trying to distract her from your feelings. Yeah.
Of course I'm doing that, fundamentally. And secondarily, what am I doing?
Succeed.
I noticed that too, Laura.
What are you going to say to me? I'm also playing therapist, really. I'm playing her therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I've changed the whole role around. I'm now in control.
Yeah.
So, because of these reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And because I also sense that if I question her, she will react to my questions. She's capable of taking seriously my responses to her. And once I get her reacting, that's all I really care about, that she's reacting to her now and not me. I'm in control of this session. And I want you to relate to yourself. What are you going to say to me? What you say to me is not a matter of technique. What you say to me is what you hear, isn't it?
I would probably ask, what does that have to do with you?
Sure. Why all these questions about me today? Or,
I'm not the client, you are.
that's right. Of course, that may be partly our problem. All right, so you're saying, I'm the client, not you. Well, why can't we be more like equals? Why do you always have to be the therapist and I have to be the client? Don't you have problems sometimes too? Why do you always have to be the fixer and the know-it-all?
It sounds to me like you don't want to be in a position of being a client. You don't want that.
You're getting closer to it. Can you hear a little deeper? What is it that I'm not willing to tolerate?
My being a certain authority.
In control.
That's right, in a position of superior power. Don't you see? I resent the fact that you're in a position of superior power. I want to bring you down, so I call you Doc. I call you Laura. How are you doing, Laura, today?
Well, it's not just the power, though, it's also the symbol of health.
Sure. And I want to be your equal. I don't want to be inferior to you in psychological health or maturity or anything else. That's my dynamic. I'm competing like hell with you. So I call you Laura. I won't even call you Doc. I want to give you that much respect. You see? Or if you had a nickname, I'd even use the nickname. Instead of Barbara, I'd call you Babs or something. And you'd really feel small. Because you do that for kids.
Well, you might say as a therapist, I don't like it when you, or maybe you wouldn't.
But I would say to you, I think you need to see a therapist. You're threatened by me, aren't you? I'm a tough cookie to deal with, yeah.
So I say, okay, I get the feeling that you don't like something about this, that I have some power over you. And you say, who cares, power? I don't know about that stuff.
I might say that, but you're getting closer to home. Usually clients will say, what makes you say that? What makes you think that? Because it's starting to become a reality, not a full reality, but you're not responding, and I don't mean just responding to me, you're not responding inside yourself. You're not reacting to what I've been doing to you. Because if you are reacting, you can't hear me. You won't hear what I'm doing in my interaction with you. I am minimizing you. I am diminishing your power, your authority, your role, your worth, your adequacy. I see you don't have a shingle up on the wall. You don't have your degree. You're still a student, are you? Oh, how far along are you? Just a year or so. Oh, gee, I guess you don't have that much experience, do you? Whatever I might, if you're going to be sensitive about that, I can threaten you in different ways by saying, you're not a doctor yet, are you?
No, I'm
How far away are you from being a doctor? See how I'm getting to it?
Well, how would you respond? You know, if you were a student.
Yeah, you'd be
Yeah.
Right. You have to understand that the question that I'm posing to you has different possibilities. One may be a very genuine concern on my part. Whose hands am I in?
Yeah.
You see, how adequate are you? So you might then say, are you concerned that perhaps I might not be adequate enough to help you with your problems? Then I can say yes or no to that, you see. Or it might be that I just want to put the focus on you. I want to be moving away from what I am feeling today. Or I want some feeling of an effect on you, so I feel that my will is potent. I want a reaction. I want to feel I have an effect upon you because you're affecting me incredibly, and I don't feel any reciprocal power in having an effect upon you.
So which of those three it is just happens to be what you feel is happening?
That's right. You can't go except with what you feel. You got to listen to all of that because in many cases I feel hurt by you because you didn't give me an extra session. I'm trying to hurt you. And there's nothing, and anything else we talked about as possibility, I am just trying to find a way to hurt you. And I think that by diminishing your worth as a therapist, what I'm saying is you really don't have the adequacy to treat me. You're not really good enough. And I'm saying to you, I don't think you're very adequate. Now, how does that grab you? Whether I say that directly or indirectly, I can say it indirectly by saying, well, I wonder if we're going to rehash the same old stuff today as we usually do. Or, I don't know if I'm getting that much out of these sessions. Am I supposed to be getting more? Do you think I'm improving, Doc? Do you think I'm getting better? You see, the intimation is the same.
And how would you respond to that?
Obviously, you don't feel you're getting better. Doesn't matter what I think. Can you tell me what you think you should be getting better with that you're not getting better with? Because if you felt you were getting better, there'd be no need for the question. So if I say to you, yes, you're getting better, it's irrelevant. Because the client doesn't feel he or she is getting better, and that's what you have to get at. Why do you feel? Not only why do you feel you're not getting better, but about what are you not improving and getting better? What feelings are not getting relieved? What feelings are not getting better in terms of being less painful, threatening, or fearful to you? So it's irrelevant. You may think I'm improving, because you as a therapist need to affirm your own adequacy as a therapist. You need to see progress. So if I say to you, am I improving, Doc, you say, well, of course. Whoever works with me improves. No doubt about that. Look, you never used to be able to talk about this and this. Now you can talk about that. You see, it's all irrelevant. Because if I feel I'm not growing, then what you tell me is completely irrelevant. You're listening to me and my reaction, my motivation, and you don't let me put you into a reactive state within yourself. Even if you are reacting, you don't stay there. You've got to come back and say, well, why is this guy saying this to me? What's he upset about? What's he concerned with? You're disappointed enough the way our therapy is going, aren't you? Can we talk about that? What specifically you're disappointed about? I thought I would be feeling better by now. Better about what? See, now the issue may not be I'm not getting better. The issue may be I want to make you feel like a failure, like you have made me feel. So it's not that I'm not getting better. That may be irrelevant to me. I may deal with that. And if you hear that, you've got to approach it then differently. To say, what am I doing or not doing that you think somehow is not helping you? Then you're getting to my perception of you as a failure as a therapist. But you don't care. You're wide open because you don't care what I say. But if your sense of worth depends upon your seeing yourself as an adequate therapist, you will not ask that question of me because you leave yourself wide open for me to say, I don't think you're helping me at all, Doc. And then they will shatter you. Instead of saying, you may be right. You share with me what you think I should be helping you with that I'm not helping you with. And maybe we can explore why I'm not helping you with that. We'll see what's missing. I still feel like such a terrible failure. So then you can see that what I've been doing is to try to make you feel like a failure. I don't want to be the only one that feels like a failure in this interaction. I want you to feel like a failure too. Then maybe you'll be able to empathize with me. You see? And once I see how you respond to feeling like a failure, if you get angry with me, if you deny it, then I know that you can't handle feelings of failure any better than I can. And then therapy is over. Doesn't matter what you say and do from now on the rest of the 20 sessions we meet, the therapy is over. Because I have seen you deal with my feeling pretty much in the way that I deal with my feeling. Denial, avoidance, escape, compensation. And you come up with, well, but we're not here to talk about me, sir. We're here to talk about you. I can hear the defensiveness, and even though that's quite true and quite correct, the way you say it and the moment you say it now is no longer meant as a therapeutic effect. It's meant to say, get off my case, we're here to talk about you, not to analyze me. But in some cases, the analyzation of you is a significant issue. It's part of the transference. Because I'm trying to make you feel as though you are inadequate. Because I want you to empathize with me and know what it feels like, and I want to see if it's possible to really deal with such feelings. If you can't deal with it, then you're never going to get me to deal with it. It's a matter of hearing. Many things are coming out of you all at once. If you're reacting to those things, you're not hearing any of those things. You're hearing only yourself. This guy's calling me inadequate. This guy's hostile as hell. Making me hostile toward him. Trying to control me. Castrating the hell out of me. Making me feel so inferior to him. The nerve of this guy. I'm working so hard to help him. And look at the criticism he comes up with. I'm reacting to all the stuff inside me. I can't hear where he's coming from then. Or I'll assume it's transference and say, well, he's hostile toward me, it must be a transference. Maybe he really is hostile toward me because he trusted me to take away his pain, and I really have failed. Because I even haven't heard the pain, or I'm afraid to have him face that pain because I myself have never faced that pain. The client isn't always distorting. It may be a truth that he has given me his hurt, and I haven't helped him to deal with it, or face it, or understand it, or even see it. He feels genuinely like you're a failure, just like there are times when he just projects that onto you so that you will know how he feels. Or he's just saying to you, you are making me feel like a failure, I will make you feel like a failure. He says, I'm not going to say any of those things. You have to hear all that, because that will never be said to you verbally. If you don't hear it, you don't have the data for therapy. You go around in circles with me.
So the client says, I still feel like a failure.
You say that to the client?
Client.
Yes. Okay, that's fine. So tell me what you feel like a failure about. What is it that is making you feel like a failure? Eventually we get into what is success for you. Because for the ego, quite often it's either an absolute success or an absolute failure. Because the failure of success goes along with the recognition, non-recognition need for the ego, or the worth, non-worth need for the ego. So if I don't gain the recognition, meaning success, then I'm a failure, meaning I'm a nobody. Success equals being a psychological ego or somebody. Failure means failure. You're nothing. You're a nobody. It isn't just the word failure that I'm responding to here. Being a failure means I'm ineffectual, inadequate, no potency. But if I had any potency at all, I'd be adequate at something. So it isn't just that I've failed at something. When are we ever a failure? I mean, I'm still living. Next year I'll perform better than I did this year at everything, probably. So how can I ever be a failure, meaning finally a complete inadequate? I'm growing all the time. One is never a success or a failure, because there is no final point that says this makes you a success. And even if you are a success as a student, you might be a failure as a husband and a wife, even as a human being. You can't be a success at everything. Maybe a total failure fixing your own car when it needs to be fixed, or whatsoever. You don't have knowledge about everything. But yet you feel like a generalized failure. What does that mean? I had a young man come in a few days ago, depressed, like a failure. Why? He got a 92 on his exam instead of 100. I know I should have gotten 100. I knew those answers. I can't forgive myself. Terribly depressed, 92. I should have gotten 92s, undergraduate. Well, he's a failure. And I say to him, 92, how do you qualify as a failure? I'm a failure because I had an opportunity to get 100 and I didn't do it. See what failure means then? Impotence, can't control, to have everything happen the way he wants it to happen. Failure at what? No one is just categorically a failure. You're a failure at something in your own mind.
But the person is likely to say I'm a failure at everything.
Okay, you feel like a failure at everything. Give me some, for instances, of what you are a failure at.
I can't fix my car. Well, I just feel like a failure at everything. I mean, I go home and I can't relate to my husband, and my kids are crazy, and I can't fix my car, and I'm failing out of school, and I just got fired from my job, and
Okay. Which one of those bothers you the most? Let's deal with one of them and see. You want to talk about your husband? You say you're a failure with your husband. Let's say that I hear that has the most impact or charge for you. I might ask you, which of those things? You don't know what failure means. You know you only have trouble with your husband. Can you share with me what you mean by having trouble with your husband? See, we don't know if you're a failure, or if your husband's a failure, or the relationship is a failure, or none of those are a failure. All we know is that you're having trouble with him. What is the trouble? You may be having trouble in school too. Eventually I may find that you have a need to defeat yourself, castrate yourself, make yourself feel inadequate. See yourself as inadequate or as a failure. But I have to get specific about it.
Please stop here.
Sure.
Are we gonna